Hey guys, welcome to Get Busy Watching. I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies. Today's review, Luce.
Last week, he wrote a paper in which he argued that violence was a necessary cleansing force.
You teach this?
I don't.
You don't conform to what she wants, and suddenly you're the enemy.
This woman has some kind of vendetta against Luce.
You never really know what's going on with people.
It's directed by Julius Ona. Sorry if I mispronounced his name, but he has previously done The Cloverfield Paradox. The main cast includes Kelvin Harrison Jr. from Monsters and Men, It Comes at Night, Birth of a Nation, and will be in upcoming films Waves, due out sometime this year, and The Photograph, due out in 2020. Naomi Watts from The Glass Castle, Demolition, and will be in the upcoming films Once Upon a Time in Staten Island, due out later this year, and Penguin Bloom, due out in 2020. Tim Roth from Hardcore Henry, The Hateful Eight, and will be in upcoming films The Song of Names, due out later this year, and Bergman Island, due out in 2020, and Octavia Spencer from Ma, Instant Family, The Shape of Water, and will be in upcoming 2020 films The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle and Onward. I feel like I know what this movie is trying to be. It's trying to be another Black experience movie, but taking a different subject matter. Like, here's a Black kid who can be raised in a middle-class, mild-mannered white family, but be put on a pedestal that he doesn't want to be put on. Obviously, there's a lot of layers to peel away, but as a knee-jerk reaction as to whether or not I like this movie, I'm going to say that I feel unsatisfied and I don't particularly care for it. But let's talk about it and get into the reasons why. A quick disclaimer before I begin my review. I did miss about the first 5 minutes of this movie. I saw this and then that followed back to back. I thought I had enough time to get there before missing anything. I obviously did my math wrong, so I missed about 5 minutes of the beginning. So, with that said, I'm going to say that I probably might have missed a few things. Throughout the entire movie, Luce is constantly complaining about Octavia Spencer's character. She has this habit of labeling people. Let's say that you are a young girl who experienced some sort of sexual assault. She will now point at this girl, not necessarily in a literal sense, but a very heavily implied sense that she is strong and that women don't deserve this. She makes a political statement, basically. Whether it's intentional or not, it bothers Luce. And she does the same thing with him. Because Luce has actually a pretty dark background, like he was a little kid in a foreign country, learned how to shoot a gun when he was in his single-digit years. So now he's the poster boy of a Black kid who overcame his background, and now he's got a bright future ahead of him, all that good stuff. And there's some actually great scenes that illustrate Luce's frustration with this. In fact, one of my favorite scenes is when he's talking to his parents about Octavia Spencer's character. It's like, he says, I don't like tokenism. I don't think there's a difference between being punished for being a stereotype and being celebrated for not being a stereotype. What you call a benefit, I call responsibility that I didn't ask for. I think these lines are actually really relevant. However, here's where my problems start, and missing those first 5 minutes may be a critical reason to why I don't think that highly of this movie from here on out. So I do apologize if anyone has any information they want to lend me. What did I miss in that first 5 minutes? I'd greatly appreciate it to get better context. From what I saw in the movie, the rivalry between Luce and Mrs. Wilson kind of comes out of nowhere and isn't properly built up. One of the big issues at hand is asking whether or not Luce truly believes in what he wrote in that assignment. So in a way, this movie is trying to be a psychological drama. A snowball effect is triggered and gets bigger and bigger as the story progresses. Luce is put on a pedestal. He doesn't like that. In retaliation, he writes a questionable paper. In retaliation, Mrs. Wilson goes through his locker and finds illegal fireworks. Actually, we're going to take a minute to stop here and talk about one of the bigger problems that I had with the setup of this movie. I do not believe for a second that a teacher would call the parents first after reading this questionable paper and finding illegal fireworks to let them handle the situation. No, I believe they should take that shit to the principal first. Let Luce explain himself to that person. And it's not like I don't get it. Mrs. Wilson just doesn't want to cause any problems for his future. He is a bright student. He's respected amongst his peers. But at the same time, I feel like if you truly believe that this assignment is a subtle threat, you have to do your job first. The safety of your students is more important than the reputation of your student.
The needs of the many outweigh
the needs of the few.
or the one.
Besides, you don't know how these parents are going to react. You know that there are parents out there who will cover for their children, making the situation far worse. Gotta do your job, man. But let's move on. From this point on, it's all mind games. Like, Luce will go into her classroom, they'll have a talk, and then he'll go into this speech about how he thinks that 4th of July is his favorite holiday because he likes the fireworks. Wink, wink. Like, I don't know how to feel about this without going into spoilers. But it does certainly give you the impression that he's threatening his teacher. And once again, I'm going to take a pause and kind of talk about the parents really quick. Now, don't get me wrong. Both Naomi Watts and Tim Roth as Luce's parents are really good. They play their roles as concerned parents really well. However, here's my issue. I feel like there's some inconsistency with their characters. Once Amy, played by Naomi Watts, comes home with this information to her husband, she's naturally concerned, but he's almost trying to brush this under the rug. Like, I would say, okay, if it was just talking about the assignment, but he does know about the fireworks. Why is he not more concerned about that? I know if my dad caught me with illegal fireworks in high school, he would kick my ass. But then in a later scene, it'll be almost the complete opposite. Amy will just be like, maybe we're blowing this out of proportion. Maybe she's taking things the wrong way. But then the dad is just like, no, we have to confront him about this. This is a huge issue. It's like, where was this with the illegal things? The actual illegal things. Right now, a threat can be misinterpreted. But illegal fireworks, really? This is where you're not drawing the line? Now, don't get me wrong. This movie has tremendous acting. Kelvin Harrison Jr., man, I can see this guy going far. Naomi Watts is great, Tim Roth, Octavia Spencer. Nobody is half-assing it in this movie. In fact, one of the best scenes, in my opinion, is with the actress who plays Stephanie Kim. And she goes through a gauntlet of emotions in her scene. And it's wonderful. I hope she gets great roles in the future. I'd be totally down to seeing more of her. I just don't know how a lot of the events that are portrayed in the film have anything to do with the main story. Speaking of this character, Stephanie Kim, so much emphasis is put on a possible sexual assault thing that happened to her at a party. The thing is that it tries to say that Luce was part of it in some way. Whether or not he was part of those that were inappropriately touching her. But he insists that it didn't happen like that. He insists that he was just trying to be a good guy, trying to protect her, protect his friends. But then later on, it feels like this is sort of abandoned, or it's just so loosely tied up that you kind of wonder what the whole point was anyway. What does this have to do with the rivalry that he has with Mrs. Wilson? I honestly don't really get it. But I have to say, if this movie wants to keep you interested, it always throws a curveball to keep you interested. You are always wondering how this is going to be resolved. Whenever something new happens, you wonder how it's going to play into the rest of the story. Sometimes the payoff is actually really good. There's one scene that involves Luce meeting Mrs. Wilson's mentally unstable sister. That shit does have a payoff that's shocking and seems to be a commentary on something, but again, I just don't know why it connects to anything else. I feel like if this story was truly just a student and a teacher not seeing eye to eye on how he should be perceived, then the movie is going to over-the-top lengths to try and resolve it and give answers to an issue that I do believe exists out there. So my honest rating for Luce is a 3 out of 5. And that's it for the new releases. Check out my reviews for Hobbs and Shaw and Them That Follow. Hopefully soon I'll also be able to get my 47 Meters Down review up in commemoration for its upcoming sequel, Uncaged. Next week, we're going to have more than a few movies coming out. We got The Kitchen, The Art of Racing in the Rain, Dora, The Lost City of Gold, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Peanut Butter Falcon, and possibly Ode to Joy. So when the time comes, keep an eye out for those reviews as well. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Hope to see you soon.